JT Taylor, and this is Dry Snitch. Hey guys, thanks for being here. This is episode 5 of Dry Snitch. I'm JT and I'm your host. So let me preface this video with saying this. The reason for this channel, Dry Snitch, is to let people know who might not know anything about the street life, anything about drugs, alcohol abuse, gangs, violence, jail, prison, selling narcotics, the process of buying them, how does it go, how is a drug deal made, all this kind of stuff, what does your day look like if you're a drug addict, how do you go about doing it? And this is to educate those people. So it's supposed to educate as well as hopefully it might even entertain you somewhat, but the main goal is to educate so that it might get you some help. If you're one of these people who are watching and who's been to prison or jail and you're just being watching the videos and getting entertained by the stories, that's great too. But it is mainly supposed to help some people. So if anybody is out there and you need help and you can't find help, especially if you're in the Illinois, Chicagoland area, please feel free to leave a comment. There's been people who've done it already, and I will do my best to try to find a place for you to go to get some help, okay? There are avenues to get it. Whether or not you have insurance, that does make a difference, but it doesn't mean that you can't get it without insurance, because I have done it with insurance and without insurance. There are places you can go. So please, if you can't find help, please do not hesitate to ask. It will not be embarrassing. I will not tell anybody else about the story. I'll give you a way to contact me to where it's not in the comments, and we'll go from there, okay? So, or if you got a loved one and you need to know what to do or whatever, please just contact me. And, there's already been people who've done that too, and I'm working with, people's loved ones and stuff like that, and it's great. It's rewarding. So I don't mind doing it, and so please, reach out. So tonight's story is not anything to do with prison or jail. This is a story of the first time I've ever really experimented even with prescription medications that weren't mine, okay, that were also controlled substances. So, there's a lot of medication. A lot of the reason people are getting addicted to opiates nowadays are legitimate reasons. I mean, I remember I had my foot surgically repaired back in, I think it was 2015, and the doctor readily wrote me prescriptions for Norcos, 10 milligram Norcos, which are the highest one. And I wasn't abusing them at first. I'm like, what are these going to do for somebody who was a heroin addict before? I was clean at the time off of heroin. So I shouldn't have been doing any opiates ever again. I should have found a way around it, toughed it out, done whatever, but, or had somebody like a sponsor or something divvy out the medication as prescribed, okay? Because at first I started just doing what you're supposed to, little by little, I'd use an extra pill a day, then an extra 2 or 3. Then I remembered one time saying, man, I wonder if I took 10 of these at one time, what it would do. Can you imagine 10 horse pills popping, like a huge ibuprofen? That's what size they were. That's not what they were, but and I'm taking 10 of them at one time. Can you imagine? Man, that's just ridiculous thinking. And of course, I felt it, and it was that familiar opiate dope type high, and I was out to the races. I was running short every month, and it wasn't good. And by the way, those pills on the street are extremely expensive. If you went to buy a Norco 10 on the streets, they go from anywhere from very, very lowest I've ever seen them. And this was like 5 or 6 years ago. It was $5. And I've seen them as much as $8 or $10 a piece. Okay? And in order to give you the feeling of a $10 bag of heroin, you'd probably need about 10 of them. So it costs you $100. It ain't long before people start saying, well, what am I going to do? I got this addiction. And by the way, if you just stop taking them immediately, you're going to go through some wicked withdrawals if you've been using them for months. Or I was on them for over 1.5 years before I even had my surgery. And then I had my surgery. I was going to be on them for months more. I remember my doctor writing that final script and saying this is the final one, and I knew I was in trouble. So anyway, this wasn't Norco. So anyway, I was on a methadone program at the time. I just came home from the county jail. And in Cook County, if you are on a methadone or Suboxone program in the world, a legitimate one in your name and you're paying and you go every day, they will give you methadone in Cook County Jail. It takes sometimes 2 to 3 days to get to you because they got to call the program and, see if you really were, find out what your dosage was and all that kind of stuff. And it's actually a good thing. And what they do is they break you down in there, a few milligrams a day until you're done, if you're there long enough. Well, I wasn't there long enough this time. And so when I got out, I got back on methadone in the world. And the great thing was I never had to go through, cold turkey withdrawals in the county, okay? So I went to this methadone program. I ran into my buddy Ty from high school, and I did call him and reach out to him before this, and he did say that I could use his name. So I was a friend of Ty's in high school, and I told him, hey, man, there was this guy in jail, and he was telling me about these pills called Xanax, and yeah, everybody pretty much knows what a Xanax are now. They got a rapper named Little Xan after Xanax. It's probably the most retarded thing I've ever heard, but whatever. And he's like, oh yeah, I know where to get those, and I'm like, okay. He's like, yeah, they got Xanax, they got like Valium, all kinds of stuff. I'm like, all right, let's go over there. So I drove. He was in the passenger seat. His girlfriend was also on the methadone program in the back seat. And by the way, we're going to go get dope too, because we were all using dope on top of the methadone. Which, by the way, methadone has a opiate blocker in it. So you can't even feel most of the heroin. So you get that initial, like, high, that little bit of a jolt from it. And then it's pretty much gone. So it's stupid to do it, but you do it, So anyway, we went to this place. It was on the street. We just pulled up. He didn't even have to get out of the car. Guy came over to the car. He called him over there. He's like, yeah, give me this and that. Give me, 5 of these, 4 of these, 3 of these. He just told me to hand him like $20, $30. I handed it to him. He turned over and he handed me a handful of pills. Well, there's like 5 pills in my hand. And, I drank whatever I was drinking, probably a Coke or whatever, and just threw them down my throat. So we drove away, and then he turns to me. He's like, okay, now give me one of that one of this. I go, what? He goes, those pills I handed you. He said, give me one that looks like a bar, and then give me a pink one and a yellow one. I said, Ty, I used them all already. He goes, wait, what? You took all that? And I said, yeah, why did you hand them to me if I wasn't supposed? I thought that's what you're doing. He's like, no, that's what you paid for. And I paid for, like, I was doing a transaction. So I'm like, my bad. I went around the block again and gave him some money to buy his now, because I used ours both. But he's like, man, you're going to be in some serious, trouble. I'm like, what's it going to do to me? I'm a dope fiend, I can use a lot at a time. I got a high tolerance and all this kind of stuff. I'll be just fine. So I think I was for a while. We went and got some more heroin and used that on top. And then we're driving around. The next thing I remember, we're on the expressway on 290 West. And we're driving on the expressway. And I remember in my mind, this truck cut me off and actually hit me. Hit like the back of my car. And then he took off. He was flying. And I'm like, man, that guy's he hit me. I'm trying to catch him. And literally, I was calling the Illinois State Police to tell him that this guy just hit me in his truck. And Tyler's going, man, hang up, man. Hang up. That was your fault. You cut him off. I don't know why he's running. Obviously, the guy I did catch up to him. He looked like he was a Mexican guy, so maybe he wasn't legal, or maybe he didn't have a license or insurance, but he was trying to get out of there too. So best thing for me to do was just to leave it alone. So I left it alone. So I don't remember anything else of what happened that day, okay? I know that a few hours later, I was going down North Avenue. I was heading to pick up my then girlfriend at her job. And I got in a car accident. And I mean a bad car accident to where the entire front of the car was no longer there. It was totaled, And all the airbags went off. I vaguely remember getting out. I'm piecing some of this together with what my ex-girlfriend told me and what the report said and stuff. I guess I got out of the car and I went and walked up to a guy and he's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Well, what had happened is there was an accident already on North Avenue that had happened. One car hit the back of another car. I was driving about 45 miles an hour and there was a truck in front of me. He saw it at the last minute, swerved out of the lane. I didn't see it at all. I could have been asleep for all I know. Probably was. I didn't see it at all. And I hit the back car going like 45 miles an hour. And I got out of the car, all the airbags deployed, like everyone, the curtain, the side, the front, everything. And I got out of the car and a guy came up to me, he's like, "Man, are you okay? Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." I called my girlfriend on the phone. I said, "Hey, baby, I just been in a car accident." She's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And as I was talking to her in front of this guy, he said I passed out. Now, here's what he told my girlfriend because I dropped my phone. He picked it up and she's like, "Oh my God, is he alive?" He said, "Yeah, he looks to be okay, but he probably hit his head on the windshield because he's got a bump." And she's like, "Didn't the airbags come off?" He goes, "Yeah, but he hit it hard. He probably went over the airbag," which is what I did. And so the police came, ambulance came and everything. And since I didn't have any alcohol in my breath, they're thinking that I'm just loopy because I was in an accident. They put me on a stretcher. They take me to the hospital. I know they were taking me for CAT scans, MRIs, x-rays, all this stuff. Finally, my girlfriend, I was picking her up. She didn't have another way there. Somebody came and got her. She got to the hospital and she sees me. She's like, "What happened?" And then she could tell that I was not in my right mind. And I told her, "Get me unhooked from all these wires and stuff and get me out of here. Because they might come and try to take a blood test for, to see if I had drugs in my system. At the same time, I'm not wanting to tell my girlfriend that I'm using, but she knows I'm on methadone. So I'm like, it was the methadone. It was the methadone." And so she did. She helped me. She didn't want to. She fought against me, but she's like, "No, you're going to be in, it was a bad accident." She goes, "I don't know how you're even alive." I go, "I'm fine though, you see that." So she unhooked me. I signed myself out AMA. I left. I remember she said it was 2 days later I woke up and all I know is I was getting out of bed and I looked at my knees and they were like this big. Both of them, swole. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, what's going on? But I'll tell you what, when you're on drugs and heroin and methadone or whatever, you don't know what happens sometimes. And you're just like, I'm not going to say nothing to nobody because they're going to figure it out then, you know? So I got up and yeah, they were hurting, but I could still walk. And I grabbed my car keys from my nightstand, got dressed. This is when I still smoked. I haven't smoked now in 16 years. But I came out of the room and I see my girlfriend sitting on the couch. She said, "Good morning, where are you going?" I go, "I'm going to get a pack of squares." For those of you who don't know what squares are, squares are cigarettes. So I was going to get a pack of Newport. And she goes, "Okay, but how are you getting there?" And I looked at her and go, I'm driving. She goes, "With what car?" Now, she was a limo driver, okay? And since we didn't have a car yet, we had to wait for the insurance to go buy another one in a few days. Her boss gave her a town car to take home, you know. She goes, "How are you getting there in that car?" Obviously, you can't take your car. I go, "Why not?" She was really scared because, like I said, this was 2 or 3 days later. She said, "Come sit down." She goes, "What do you remember about, you know, the last few days?" I go, "Everything. What are you talking about?" I didn't remember the accident at all. When she brought it up, I remembered, you know, basically what I told you just now. And she said, "Oh, babe, I'm scared. We got to go back to the hospital. Something's wrong. You must have a head injury because you don't remember anything." And she was really scared. So, and that's another thing. We don't account for all the worry and the, you know, and the just distrust that we put on our loved ones. You know, like, how would you feel if your wife or your boyfriend, if you're a woman or whatever, left and, you know, you get a call that he's in an accident. 2 days later, he wakes up, he doesn't know anything about it. And you know he's on drugs, you know he's an addict. Wouldn't you be like super scared every time he went out of the house? I would be, you know, for quite a while. My wife still, you know, worries if I don't answer her text in like 5 or 10 minutes. And, you know, I go to church every Sunday and I turn off the volume. So almost every Monday I miss a few calls or texts, and she's calling me in a fit. You know, she doesn't get too upset anymore because now she kind of, you know, has a little bit more trust, but still not completely gone. Not by a long shot. So anyway, I remember I went to the tow yard. I called the tow yard. And I said, "Yeah, I wanted to come pick up my car." They go, "Pick it up? That car's totaled." The guy goes, "And I'm sorry for, you know, your loss or whatever." They figured that whoever was driving that car was dead. I said, "Okay." I didn't even straighten that out. I go, "Well, can I come and get my belongings out of the car?" And they go, "Yeah. And by the way, we put the 2 microwaves in the office. So they're inside. You know, we inventoried them and they're inside." I go, "Microwaves?" He said, "Yeah, there was 2 brand new microwaves still in the box in the back seat." People, I have no clue how those microwaves got there. I had no receipts from them. I know they came from Home Depot. And one of them was bright yellow because it was supposed to go to a construction site, you know, like in a construction trailer. And so nobody would take it. They make it yellow, you know. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, I was out, obviously, stealing from the store while I was like this. So we go down to the tow yard, or I did. I get out of her car, you know. I think I got a rental by then or whatever. And I go to the tow yard and I asked the guy, "Can I see the car?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll bring you back to it." And he walked up and he's real quiet. He's like, "Hey, may I ask, you know, who was it? You know, who was driving the car?" I go, "Me." He goes, No. I'm talking about this car, blah, blah, blah. It was a Saturn, when Saturns were new, you know. And I go, no, I was driving. He goes, hey, wait a minute. You were driving this car and we were right there. I go, yeah. He goes, and you're alive? I go, yeah, man. Saturn, I guess, was a good made car. It was safe. It did have five-star safety, you know. And I go, I'm alive and I'm fine, other than my knees are pretty banged up. He goes, but you could tell there's a bulge in the windshield where there's blood on it from your head. I go, yeah, see, there's still a little cut. I go, that's it. I go, but I did kind of blank out for a few days. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. He actually took a picture of me with the car and like was showing people, like his wife, I guess he texted her, you know, look what happened. This guy he's alive. He was driving this car. There was no front. The engine had basically came through the firewall. It was amazing that I lived and that I wasn't like, for the grace of God. I wasn't lucky, people. I do not believe in luck. That was nothing but the Lord Jesus Christ himself and God the Father pulling me through that. And I believe that with all my heart. Because there should have been plenty of times that I should not have been here anymore. So I go home and I'm telling my wife about what this guy said and stuff. And she wants to know what happened that day. And I tell her, well, I ran into my old buddy Ty, who she didn't know, and his girl, and, you know, we were blah, 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 blah. And, you know, I was coming to get you. And she goes, I told her that I took these pills, but I didn't know how many I was taking. I thought I was only taking, you know, like 4 pills and they weren't really strong or whatever. She goes, well, he did. You better, man, she knows how I am. I tend to fight a little bit, you know, and she's like, I already know you're going to try to tear his head off when you see him. I go, you're right. You know, so I remember going to the methadone the next day and he wasn't there. And then the next time I saw him, you know, we went at it, you know what I'm saying? And I came to him, I said, man, what's wrong with you? Why would you let me drive home? You know, I go, I totaled my car. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and like I told you, I remember the first accident. I go, he goes, wait, you were in another accident? I go, yeah. He goes, man, that means you were in 4 car accidents in one day. I go, what? He told me, yeah, well, the first one where you know, this car had hit you. He goes, 2 more times we were on the street and at a light, your foot slipped off the brake and you hit the car in front of you. But both of those times, luckily, the people must not have a license or it didn't do really much damage, you know, because you were right behind them. And both times they looked at both cars. There was no real damage. And they just said, go ahead, you know. And so I'm like, why would you let me drive home like that? He's like, man, I didn't have a choice. I tried to take your keys and you were wanting to fight me about them. You said you had to go pick up your fiance. You had to go do this. You know what I'm saying? Don't F with you. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, he'd been a lifelong, you know, friend up to that point. Like, he ain't going to fight me over that. But, you know, to this day, when I just talked to him, I said, I don't know why you let me drive. But, you know what? He was under the same stuff as I was. So I don't know why he would have been any more responsible. He didn't take as much as I did. But, you know, it is what it is. So I had 4 car accidents in one day. That's crazy. I've never heard of anybody being in 2. And I knew I had been in 2, but I didn't know about the 2 in between. 4 car accidents in one day. All I had taken was methadone, some Xanax, and some other. Now, I'm the first one to tell you, I've got a I don't know what you want to call it, I got a high tolerance for anything that I take. I can drink, and people are, oh, I'll drink you under the table, and I'm not bragging, believe me, I'm not. It's not proud that I can, but I can drink a whole lot before I'm, super inebriated or whatever. I can use a lot of, dope because I've been doing it for so long. It's nothing to be proud of. It's probably because my insides probably look like they're pickled, I wasn't a big drinker, so I didn't do a lot of damage to my brain as far as that goes. But, that's crazy what it can do to you, and if you think about, the people that I could have hurt, man, I just thought, man, what if some little kids, because it was during school time when I was coming back home. I was supposed to go get her at 4 o'clock. Like, there had to have been kids all over the place walking home from school. What if I would have hit just one of them? Not to mention, I wouldn't be here right now. I'd probably still be in jail or dead. But I would have taken some little girl or little boy's life. I could have never forgiven myself for that. All because I wanted to try another drug and feel a little bit better. If anybody out there is an addict or an alcoholic, you do know that your problem isn't the drugs, right? Like, if you got a son or a daughter or a brother or sister or a friend who's on drugs or alcohol, you know that that's not their problem, right? That me doing heroin at the age of 14 all the way up into my 40s, the heroin wasn't the problem. You do get that, right? So with the problem, that was what I used as the solution to my problem, which in turn, picking the worst solution I could pick made my problem even worse. My problem was, as I said, the first time I used it was trying to fit in, feeling like I didn't belong somewhere. And so, usually when you're older, it's probably out of loneliness or boredom, or, you might feel like you let people down in your lives, or you're depressed about something and you want to get out of that feeling just for a moment. And here you are, depressed. And so you pick up a depressant. You pick up heroin or alcohol. That they're depressants. So yeah, they make you forget all about that problem temporarily. But when that's gone, now you've got the problem of that problem hasn't been dealt with properly yet. And now you've got a problem because now you might have an addiction to something that is detrimental to your health, detrimental to your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health, your financial health. Every kind of problem that you can imagine is going to come into your life if you start using drugs as a solution. Even if you're somebody who doesn't drink very often, but when you get depressed, somebody dies, something like that happens, and you say, you know what, I need a drink really bad, and you go have one, and that's your way of dealing with that problem, you might want to take a look at that, because that's a problem. If you're looking for negative ways to take you out of feeling negative, you got something wrong with your thinking. I mean, the proper way to deal with that, right, would just go talk to a friend of yours who's been through that, or go seek some counseling. I hear, and I used to be embarrassed too, because I was diagnosed before with bipolar, and I was on, I'm not on medication for bipolar anymore, but I was always embarrassed to even talk about it at meetings. But when I did, I found out that a lot of those people in there have mental health issues. A lot of times those mental health issues are the problem. And sometimes you might get prescribed to a medication that, if you take as prescribed, can help you through that situation. And you don't always have to be on those for the rest of your life. I'm not on anything for depression anymore, and I'm not depressed. But believe me, I was depressed, and those antidepressants helped me through it. Or maybe you don't seek it through that. My thing now is I bring all my problems to God, and it's crazy the way that things start to change. Another thing, I like everybody to try this. And remember, I'm not an expert, I'm not a doctor. I don't hold any PhDs. I don't even hold a master's or an associate's degree. I've done very few classes for certified alcohol, and drug counselor, and this didn't come from those. But I'd like everybody to try this. And if you have a problem that you can't seem to get through by yourself, go get counseling. There's so many counselors out there. Men, my recommendation is men go to men, women go to women. That might not be for you though. I mean, you might have like an issue with men, and you might need to see a woman, or a woman might, vice versa. But there's nothing wrong with getting some counseling, or if your problem is drugs or alcohol, how about just trying a 12-step meeting? I would suggest AA if you're an alcoholic or an addict. By the way, newer AA groups, some of the old timers don't really like you to talk about addiction or drugs in the meetings, but nowadays most people are what they call double-breasted, so they're alcoholics and addicts, and they don't mind if you talk about drugs in there. I was never considered alcoholic, and I've gone to many of AA meetings. There's NA, which is Narcotics Anonymous. There's CA, which is Cocaine Anonymous, but cocaine says cocaine and all other mind-altering substances. So I went to CA a whole lot, even though I was never a cocaine addict. I've tried it before. I was never an addict. In the 90s, I tried it. CA, though, uses the exact same big book as AA. The exact same. They don't even change the words. You do the changing. They change it in the little readings that you do before the groups. But try the group. And if you don't like it, don't give up. Try a different one at a different place at a different time. Don't come back to that same meeting on the same day and just hope it's going to get better. That might not be for you. My wife had a hard time going to, she was trying to go to like Naranan and stuff like that. And she went to she went to an Al-Anon meeting, and all they talked about is alcohol. And these people didn't seem to have like a really advanced form of alcoholism. And so my wife would have been talking about something that was way beyond what these people had experienced. But there are plenty of groups out there that have, even at Al-Anon meetings, that have people who are addicts at them. So just look around and I would ask before the meeting, ask somebody, say, hey, do you go here often? Hey, I'm an addict. I'm not an alcoholic. Is it okay if I talk about drugs? And they'll either say yes or no. 95% of the time, they're going to tell you, not a problem, and just try a meeting and see how that goes. The 12-step program, they say it works if you work it. I tried it before. I did get years of sobriety. I actually messed up because I got off that medication, the bipolar medication. That's how I slipped. I still go to 12-step meetings here and there. But my where I get my strength, hope, and promise from is from church. Now I'm a Christian, and I go to church every week, and I love going to church. There's plenty of people in my church who they know the pastor there had a brother who died of or maybe a sister actually was from heroin abuse, and a lot of these pastors have some kind of experience with it. So there's help out there. And like I said, if you can't find it, put something in the comments. If you're a lady and you want a lady to talk to, my wife will get in contact with you if you put that down. Just put your, we'll contact you back in the comments and tell you how to get personally in touch with us, okay? But like I said, I'm still working on things, guys. I don't have this licked by any stretch of the imagination. This is my journey, and I'm inviting you guys to come along with me on it. And I hope that you'll be informed, educated, and entertained. And until next time I see you, thanks for turning in to Dry Snitch. I hope to see you soon. And I guess, until then, they're probably going to call me any second now and tell me to lock down, as they usually do.
Yo, cut out all that Dry Snitch.
See what I mean? Yeah, it's time for me to go lock up. Thanks, guys. Have a great night. Peace.